Wow, it is really bright out here. So today I wanted to give a little more detailed video about how the solar power system that we set up for our house works. For all of you who've been asking questions about that, solar power is something that is more and more feasible than it used to be because the prices of the technology has come down some. But one of the reasons that we were able to make it work so well for us is because we were able to get used panels. Solar panels are basically work like an LED in reverse. It turns light into electrical current, and so you're able to, when the sun is out, and you have the better angle, and there's lots of different conditions that apply, but you can get some pretty good power output from these collectors, which is amazing. That like earlier today and just a little bit ago, my wife's washing machine in the basement was running off of the sunlight hitting these solar panels, which is just fascinating. Our homestead and home, we've always tried to set it up where we could function without electricity. So if we didn't have it, we're not just camping out in our home. We have good backup systems and all that. And it wasn't until a few months ago that I was just looking into the systems that you could get today, and realized that since we'd already decreased our electricity usage by so much by taking our hot water heater and hooking it up to wood heat, and hooking up, getting a gas stove and a lot of other things, that our loads were low enough that if we worked a little bit harder at it, we could get a system that would supply enough for our, the refrigerator that we want to have, and our washing machine, and our lights and appliances and all that, for under $4,000, about $3,500, based on these panels that I got. These are 145 watt panels that we picked up used from a large solar farm that was being disassembled, and they were selling off the panels for $40 a piece. So that's pretty economical. It's considerably less than 50 cents a watt. It's a lot of times you'll pay about $1 a watt, or more or less, for new panels. So that was a huge blessing. So I only paid about $750 or so for these 145 watt panels, and so these are all hooked up. And when you're hooking up your panels, you have to do some figuring, or have somebody help you figure out what the system inside that you're using, like your inverter, all of them have a limitation as far as how many volts they can handle. Each of these panels have a different voltage rating as far as how many volts that they pull in. If you're familiar with electricity, if you're not, volts are basically kind of like the water pressure of electricity, and your amps is like the flow of electricity. And the higher your amperage, the more flow you have, the more friction and the more heat loss you're going to have through your wires. But your voltage, that high water pressure, it's kind of like if you have too high a water pressure in pipes that aren't strong enough, then it'll bust the pipes. So you got to make sure that your voltage and your amperage matches your wires and your different elements that are hooking up to it. So with these panels here, we want to have the highest voltage that we can coming off the roof, so that we can use smaller wires, and so we have less loss of power going into the house. But we've got to stay under the recommended voltage for our inverter. And based on our calculations for these, if you basically, the way electricity works is when you're hooking up these panels, if you hook them up where the electricity is flowing through the panels, like through this panel to this panel to this panel to this panel, you're multiplying, or you're adding the voltage. So it's increasing the voltage in order to get the certain amount of watts being volts times your amperage. And if you hook them up like a branching system where it's branching out, they're not running through each other, but they're all branching into one trunk, then you're basically increasing the amperage, so that you're getting the same watts coming out, but you're keeping your voltage low, and you're just increasing your amperage. So what we found out the ideal for us is we could run hook 3 panels together and then run that back to the trunk system in a sense. Like that would be one branch. So it gives us the best. It gives us the highest voltage we can handle, but no more amps than we need to run through the system. And so then these are all going down into a combiner box inside that I'm going to show you in just a second, that allows you to combine all these together. These particular panels, we had to use Unistrut here. This is a piece I use just for walking on, but that Unistrut, these brackets mount to it, but every different solar panels have different mounting systems. You just have to figure out what would work for yours, but this in our case is what worked for mounting these panels up here. Every area of the country has a different ideal sun angle, you know, depending on where you are, where the sun is. In the wintertime, obviously, it's the more upright your panels can be, and the more direct sunlight they're getting, the better power you're going to get out of them, and then the flatter they are in the summertime, sometimes the more you're going to get. But it's different for every area, and you can kind of find out that ideal angle here. You know, just had to stick with my roof. Sometimes you just got to deal with what you've got. But for the most part, my steeper roof here is going to give me better power, and then these might be a little better in the summertime, but it was kind of a good compromise. So let's go inside now and look at the combiner box where all these wires go into. Okay, so we're in the house here where the wires come in from the solar panel. I'm just going to show you out here. This is kind of an overhead a mast, like a masthead that all the wires kind of come down and then enter into that right there, and then they come out. Let's see if I can get to see this right here in this little hole, or this out of this pipe, and then they come into this combiner box where each run of 3 panels that were hooked together come to each of these, you know, negative positive terminals on here to these MC4 solar panel wire connectors, which you can buy packs of, and then you just get a roll of this solar panel wire, photovoltaic wire that's UV resistant, so you can have it outside. It's just ideal for this kind of an application. And then the box itself, this is a PV combiner box. This one in particular one has a key. I can probably put an Amazon link on here for this one where I ordered it from. So this one here has basically all the wires coming in there, and then this is your main disconnect, which is really important. You really want to have like a disconnect so that for your system, you know, it's a lot of power coming in from your panels when it's, you know, the sun is coming in outside. So you want to be able to disconnect that if you're working on your system, and this is one good way to do that. So this panel here keeps everything neat and tidy, but you can just get like little branch connectors for all of your panels and just like connect them together and branching and bring them in, and then have like a switch. And you don't have to have a box like this, but I really like this. It kind of keeps it nice and tidy and organized. So in order to have solar panels work for your house, you have to have a power system that enables them to actually run your house. And so this is ours, and I wanted to show it to you while it's still charging the battery. You can see right here, there's this little display screen, if I can get the reflection off of it. Okay, so this right here is showing the battery percentage. It's 98 right now. This is the power coming in from the panels. It's getting later in the day, but it's still almost 1,000 watts, about 990, 980 right there, fluctuating. And as you can see, it shows that it's coming to the inverter, and it's actually, there's an arrow right there that shows that it is charging the battery. Now we're at 99%. It stops showing the power coming in once it's not using it anymore. So then the house here, you can see, is using 270 watts, and that's the temperature of the unit there. So you can go through different settings on here to show, like, this is the percentage of the inverter's total capacity, like 3,000 watts. It's only using about 9% of that. Got 120 volts, 55 volts coming in from the battery. It's a 48 volt battery, and 155 volts coming in from the panels. And this many amps, you know, 6.5 coming in from the panels, 12 amps charging the battery. And so, yeah, so that's pretty simple to be able to read that and understand it. So when your panels are coming in, your load, like up here, is fluctuating in your house. Like our washing machine's been running and so it'll pull like, you know, over 1,000 watts and then not need as much. So this right here kind of controls the power from the battery and the power from the panels, and kind of make sure that you're getting a constant supply to your house. So the way that this simple, this is an inverter and a charge controller that helps, again, the interaction between the solar panels and the battery. You know, solar panels are made, as my understanding, is like a, it's, you know, made from a semiconductor, so it's similar to like an LED, but like in reverse. Instead of like an LED, electricity making light, it's light making electricity, but similar principle, similar materials and technology there. So you can't just have your solar panels hooked up directly to your battery, because at night they would actually discharge your battery. So this takes care of all that interaction. So basically there's several connections underneath here. This is your solar panels coming in, DC. This is your 2 thick wires going to your battery coming in. This is the communication between the battery and this panel to tell it the percentage and all that. And then this is your power, your AC power out going to my electrical panel, and this is AC, or like utility power in. So you can have it hooked up like to utilities, but what I do is when I'm on a cloudy day, I'll hook the generator up to the house and disconnect this outside, so it's not hooked to the, you know, it's not powering the system anymore, but the generator is. And then while that generator's running, I can plug this in, and the generator can not only run the house but also charge my battery for a few hours, and then I can swap from the generator back to the inverter here and run the house off of the battery for the rest of the day, which is really convenient. So this battery right here is a lithium ion 48 volt battery, and it's pretty powerful. It's amazing. It's basically a 5 kilowatt hour. You can see here 5,000, I don't know if you can read that, 5,120 watt hours. Which means that it would run about 5,000 watts for 1 hour, or 50 watts for 100 hours, you know, etc. 100 watts. Yeah, so it's got a lot of power behind it compared to your normal batteries, and the 48 volt, you know, the higher the voltage you have, the less loss you have through your wires. And obviously, like an inverter, what it's doing is it's taking direct current that's not alternating, which is what your appliances need, and it creates alternating power that is at a higher voltage, whatever voltage your house requires, which in this case is 120 volts. Looking at our system now. Yeah, we're almost, still over 1,000 watts at 99%, not quite 100% yet. So anyways, this is how that works. The solar panel's coming in, it's charging a battery during the day, and then this unit converts the electricity to something your house can use and manages the loads, swapping back and forth between, you know, all the different power inputs and the needs. So this unit right here cost me a little over, there's $700 something from the place that I got it from. I'm trying to remember their name, but then this and then this battery here, this is the most expensive part actually of the entire setup, and it was around $1,500, and including, you know, and plus shipping. But it's equivalent to a lot of this, you know, like a considerable number of the smaller deep cycle batteries, and these are supposedly rated for 7,000 charges and discharges, which means it should last you, you know, using it once a day, charging it and discharging it for about 15 years or so. So it's a pretty decent investment. So that's what it looks like right here as far as the power source and how it's actually charging, running the house. And it literally is, without having huge loads on the house. We don't use our hot water heater, and we don't have our hot water heater's not electric. We're not using an electric stove, so it can run our small refrigerator, small freezer, lights, and our washing machine during the daytime when there's plenty of sun. And then on the days that we have several cloudy days, then we'll have to run the generator for a couple hours a day. But yeah, hope that makes sense as far as how this setup kind of works. It's pretty straightforward and pretty yeah, hopefully pretty simple. It's just in this little closet in our house. All right, well, this is where our meter used to be, but thankfully now we have it disconnected, so we're not paying our utility bill anymore each month. You can see right here we put in, this goes up to where our inverter power outlet, AC power out goes, and it comes down, goes into our panel box now, which is no longer disconnected to the utilities. And then over here we have some switching inside, and this is goes to our generator, so that when we have a cloudy day or two, we can run that for a few hours to power our heavy things, or like our washing machine, and then the rest of the day we can run off of the battery, which is really nice. I didn't realize that would be such a benefit of having the battery system that we set up for the solar panels, is that even when we don't have those solar panels charging it, if you want electricity, you don't have to just run the generator all day long when you're like just charging your phone, and you don't really need that whole generator running. So as far as thinking about your situation and what you would like to do with a solar panel system, this one cost us, we have about 2,600 watts capability on the roof, and then we have a 3,000 watt inverter, and then we have a 5 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery, and the whole system cost us, I was figuring it up, around $3,500 to install. We got used panels, but this was not, replacing the capability of utility power. We have to, make compromises with our electricity usage, because you can quickly run through 5 kilowatt hours. Thankfully today, with the efficiency of lighting and just the LED lighting that we typically use, our home, it's just so nice. We've experimented in the past with, okay, well, how do you use candles, or how do you use oil lamps, or propane lamps, or whatever, and just nothing compares to just that ability to flick that electric light on if you really need some good lighting. So even if it was just for the lights, it would be absolutely luxurious, but it's beyond what I ever thought we'd be able to do with a solar panel system, a solar power system that we could afford, which is be able to run our washing machine, which is an old washing machine and takes a lot of power, but when the sun is out, and even when the sun isn't, we can run it off the battery. We can run, the other day we ran 4 loads, and not having to wash clothes by hand when you're off grid is really nice. And being able to run a refrigerator, small refrigerator, and occasionally a small freezer is nice. But the key you have to realize, and we had to realize, is we have to be able to, with a system like this, if we're not going to be connected to the utilities, we have to treat electricity like a luxury. So we had to get rid of our dependency on tons of freezers that you can't just do without them, like you could do without electric lights for a few days or a week if you didn't have any sun or any power like that, or ability to run your generator. So that way, so we had to get rid of the freezers, or find other ways to store that food. Right now, we actually still have some grid power up at our commercial garden packing house. So we have some freezers up there for meat, and we put the rest of the things that we are still kind of working through that are frozen, we put that up there. And down here, we're just trying to limit ourselves to the use of that one small refrigerator that doesn't take that much power, so that it's kind of like we enjoy it if it's there. If it's not there, we don't have thousands of dollars worth of stuff that we're going to use. That's why we built a root cellar. We're trying to develop other ways of preserving food and stuff. So that just being said, we've done a lot of work of learning how to do things without electricity, so that a 3,000 watt system, 3,000 watt inverter, and this system is sufficient to be luxurious for us, compared to not having any electricity at all. But it's not going to replace the normal electrical needs for a household, if you're using an electric hot water heater and all that kind of stuff. I have another friend that taught me a lot, helped me get set up this system, and he does have a system set up that is capable of running everything electric on his house, but it's more like he has 18 of those batteries and a ton more panels and all that. So it's a lot more investment if you want to go that route. But as far as a good, either backup system or a system that allows you to maintain a lot of conveniences but still be off grid, we've found it very, very helpful and very rewarding to be able to, you know, have our own electricity coming from these panels on the roof. I'd love to play with some hydroelectric off our pond and things in the future, but I hope this gives you a better idea of our system, what it can and can't do, and how that might apply to your situation and what God's calling you to do on your homestead. And I just love the idea of energy and finding out how to be ways to be creative and harvest the energy that God's given us, because it's like there's, you know, it's so easy just to be a consumer and to just be so dependent on systems that aren't always dependable and aren't always guaranteed to be dependable, and can be used to, you know, to control people in some parts of the world. And so giving people the ability to utilize what God's given us, like sunlight. And I mean, it's just fascinating to watch, like our wash machine going, which just, you know, for 6 kids, with having 6 kids, that's a huge thing to be able to run that, and just to see it's just the sunlight hitting part of our roof that's running that. It's just amazing. But I think especially those who are Christians and claim to follow the Creator and His Son Jesus, that we should be like totally, you know, trying to lead the charge and innovating how to better utilize the creation that He's put at our disposal, and appreciating that in an amazing and grateful way. But I'll try to put some links to some of these products below that I purchased, and again, I'm sure there's lots of different options out there. This is just what we did, and I hope this has been helpful, and please let me know if you have any questions. God bless.